I stood in the back of that glittering ballroom, watching 300 people toast her, the Mistress, at my anniversary party. They thought I didn't know. They thought I'd crumble. But when I stepped onto that stage with a microphone in one hand and divorce papers in the other, every single person in that room learned who really held the power. Before we get into this story, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because honey, you're not going to believe how this unfolds. Drop a comment right now telling me what you would have done in my situation. Now, let me take you back to where this all started. My name is Gabrielle Monroe, and for 12 years I lived what everyone called the perfect life. I'm a corporate attorney, one of the best in New York, and I married Theodore Monroe when I was 26 years old. Theo built Monroe Industries from the ground up, a tech company that revolutionized cloud security. By the time we celebrated our 10th anniversary, he was worth $3.7 billion. We had the penthouse in Tribeca, the house in the Hamptons, invitations to every gala that mattered. Magazine covers called us power couple goals, black excellence, they said, the kind of love story that inspired people. Except it was all a lie. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I didn't see the signs, because I did. About 2 years ago, things started shifting. The late nights at the office became later. The business trips became more frequent. He stopped reaching for me in bed the way he used to. There was this distance growing between us, like watching someone slowly walk away in a fog. You know they're leaving, but you keep telling yourself they'll turn around and come back. When I'd ask him what was wrong, he'd kiss my forehead and say he was stressed about the company. He was preparing for the IPO, he said. It was consuming all his energy. And because I loved him, because I believed in us, I gave him space. I supported him. I played the dutiful wife while my gut screamed that something was destroying us from the inside. 6 months ago, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket. Cartier, a diamond bracelet, $18,000. I never received a bracelet. I checked every drawer, every jewelry box. Nothing. That night, I sat on our bathroom floor and cried until my ribs hurt. Then I dried my face, looked at myself in the mirror, and made a decision. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I was going to find out exactly what I was dealing with, because in my line of work, you never walk into a negotiation without knowing every single card the other side is holding. I hired a private investigator, best in the business. It took him less than a week to confirm what my heart already knew. Her name was Vanessa Wright, 28 years old, a brand consultant who worked for one of Theo's subsidiary companies. Long legs, perfect smile, everything you'd expect. They'd been seeing each other for 18 months, a year and a half. While I was helping his mother through chemotherapy, he was buying Vanessa a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. While I was managing charity fundraisers with his name on them, he was taking her to Turks and Caicos on what I thought were solo business retreats. The investigator's report was 3 inches thick: photos, bank statements, hotel receipts, text messages that made me want to burn everything we'd built to the ground. But here's what broke me more than the affair itself. Everyone knew. His business partner Calvin, who came to our house for Sunday dinners, he knew. He'd covered for Theo more times than I could count. Theo's executive assistant, the woman who sent me birthday flowers every year, she scheduled the hotel rooms. And the society wives who hugged me at charity luncheons, who called me sister and queen? Half of them had seen Theo and Vanessa together at restaurants downtown and never said a word. I'd been walking through my life as the only fool in the room, and everyone had been watching me with pity behind their smiles. I spent 3 days in that guest bedroom going through every emotion you can imagine: rage, humiliation, grief for the marriage I thought we had. But somewhere in that darkness, something else emerged. Clarity. I'm an attorney. I've built a career on strategy, on reading contracts, on finding leverage. And I realized that heartbreak didn't mean I had to be powerless. So I dried my eyes and I went to work. I assembled my own legal team, not the family lawyers we'd used before, my own people who had no loyalty to Theo or his money. We combed through every document from our marriage: bank accounts, property deeds, investment portfolios, and most importantly, our prenuptial agreement. Now, Theo had insisted on an ironclad prenup before we got married. His lawyers made sure of it. But what Theo forgot, or maybe never bothered to read carefully, was the infidelity clause that my lawyer had negotiated back then. If either party committed adultery, and it could be proven with substantial evidence, the prenup was void. The wronged party was entitled to 50% of all assets acquired during the marriage, including stock holdings, including his shares in Monroe Industries. Do you understand what I'm telling you? With the evidence I had, I wasn't just entitled to a divorce settlement. I was entitled to half of everything, half of a company about to go public, half of a fortune that was about to multiply when those stocks hit the market. Theo thought he was smart, but he'd handed me the keys to his kingdom the day he decided to betray me. The IPO was scheduled for 3 months out. The company was valued at $6 billion. Theo's team had been working around the clock to make sure everything was perfect for the launch. One whisper of scandal could tank the stock price before it even hit the market. Investors hate instability. They hate bad press. They especially hate CEOs who can't keep their personal lives from becoming liabilities. I had leverage, real, tangible, destructive leverage, and I was going to use every bit of it. Our 12th anniversary was 3 weeks away. Theo came home one evening, loosened his tie, and said he wanted to throw a big celebration. A huge party, he said, something memorable. He looked me right in the eye when he said it, and I wondered if he felt guilty or if he was just performing. I smiled and told him that sounded wonderful. I suggested the ballroom at the Grandview Hotel. I helped him plan the guest list. I played the role of excited, devoted wife while I plotted my exit with surgical precision. Every conversation we had, I was 3 steps ahead. Every smile I gave him cost me a piece of my soul, but I held on because I knew what was coming. I spent those 3 weeks preparing for war disguised as a party. I moved money into accounts he couldn't touch. I secured a new apartment in Brooklyn under my maiden name. I packed boxes of my most important belongings and moved them out while he was traveling. I met with board members from Monroe Industries, the ones who actually cared about the company's reputation more than their friendship with Theo. I showed them what I had. I explained what a scandal would do to the IPO. I gave them a choice: support me in removing Theo as CEO, or watch the whole company burn when the truth came out anyway. 7 out of 11 board members agreed. They'd vote to remove him when the time came. My best friend Angela thought I was losing my mind. She kept asking me if I was sure about going nuclear. Couldn't I just divorce him quietly and take my settlement? Why did I need to blow up his entire world? And I told her something I'll never forget. I said, "They've been laughing at me behind my back for 18 months. He brought his mistress into spaces that were supposed to be ours. He let his friends disrespect me while I smiled and played my role. This isn't about revenge. This is about making sure everyone knows that I am not the woman you betray quietly. This is about power, Angela, and I'm taking mine back." The night of the anniversary party arrived. I wore an emerald green gown, custom made, cut perfectly to my body. Emerald was Theo's favorite color on me. I wanted to look absolutely stunning when I destroyed him. I did my makeup myself, flawless, hair swept up in an elegant updo, diamond earrings that he'd given me for our 5th anniversary. I looked like money and power and grace, and when I walked into that ballroom, every head turned. Theo kissed my cheek and whispered that I looked beautiful. I smiled and thanked him. Inside, I was counting down the minutes. 300 people filled that ballroom. Colleagues, business associates, investors, society figures, family members. A string quartet played classical music. Champagne flowed like water. Everyone air-kissed and complimented the decorations and told us how inspiring our love was. I worked the room like the professional I am, shaking hands, making small talk, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Angela stayed close to me, playing her position. She knew what was about to happen. She was ready. And then I saw her, Vanessa, walking through the doors in a red dress and wearing the Cartier bracelet. The $18,000 bracelet that was supposed to be mine. My husband's mistress was at my anniversary party wearing jewelry he'd bought with our money, and she had the audacity to smile at me across the room. That's when I knew he'd actually invited her. This wasn't her crashing. He wanted her there. In that moment, I felt something beyond anger. I felt cold, calculating purpose. The speeches started after dinner. Calvin, Theo's business partner, stood up first with a champagne glass raised. He talked about Theo's vision and dedication. He mentioned the woman behind the man who'd inspired his recent success. And then he looked directly at Vanessa when he said it. Not at me, at her. Other people started joining in, offering toasts that praised the inspiration in Theo's life, the muse for his creativity, the real Monroe woman. They were coded messages, but everyone in that room who knew about the affair understood exactly what they were saying. They were celebrating her. At my anniversary party, in front of my face. I stood at the back of the ballroom, watching this performance, and something inside me snapped, not in a breaking way, in a clarifying way. Theo stood up to give his own speech, thanking everyone for coming. He held Vanessa's gaze a beat too long when he mentioned gratitude for new perspectives in his life. People laughed knowingly. I heard whispers around me. I saw the pitying glances from people who thought I was too naive to understand what was happening. They thought I was the victim. They thought I'd just stand there and take it. That's when I started walking. My heels clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing through the ballroom. Conversations stopped. People turned. I walked right up to that stage, and Theo's face shifted from surprise to confusion to something like fear. I took the microphone from his hand without asking. He opened his mouth to say something, but I was already speaking. I thanked everyone for coming to celebrate 12 years of marriage. I talked about the good times, the moments that had been real before everything became a performance. I spoke with genuine emotion because those memories deserved that much, but then I let my voice change. I said that tonight wasn't just about memories, it was about truth. And I opened the folder I'd been carrying. I told them everything. I put photos up on the screen behind me, images from the private investigator showing Theo and Vanessa together, kissing outside restaurants, holding hands on beaches, entering the apartment he'd bought her. I showed bank statements proving he'd used company funds for personal expenses, text messages where he'd promised Vanessa a VP position after the IPO in exchange for her discretion. Not just an affair, financial fraud, misuse of corporate assets, breach of fiduciary duty to shareholders. I named every single person who'd known and stayed silent. I called out Calvin for covering the lies. I addressed the assistant who'd booked the hotels. I looked directly at the society wives who'd whispered behind my back and told them I knew they'd watched me play the fool and said nothing. The ballroom was dead silent except for my voice echoing off the walls. Then I pulled out the divorce papers and served them to Theo right there on that stage. I announced that I was filing for divorce on grounds of adultery with substantial evidence. Per our prenuptial agreement, I was entitled to 50% of all marital assets, including his shares in Monroe Industries. I told everyone in that room that I'd already filed complaints with the SEC regarding his misuse of company funds. The IPO they'd all been counting on, it was about to be investigated. The stock value they'd been dreaming about to tank. But I wasn't finished. I announced that I'd secured votes from 7 board members to remove Theo as CEO of Monroe Industries effective immediately. They stood up right there in the ballroom, showing their support. Theo's face went white. Vanessa looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. I explained that the board had agreed that the company needed leadership that wouldn't jeopardize its future with personal scandals. They'd voted to install an interim CEO while they searched for permanent replacement. The company would survive. But Theo's reign was over. I placed the microphone back on its stand, looked at Theo one last time, and told him he could keep the penthouse. I didn't want anything that reminded me of the lie we'd been living. Then I walked off that stage, through the stunned crowd, and out of the ballroom with my head high and my shoulders back. Angela was right behind me. Camera flashes went off outside. I'd made sure certain journalists knew to be there. This wasn't going to be buried. The truth was going public, and Theo would never be able to spin it his way. The aftermath was exactly what you'd expect. Chaos. Theo tried to do damage control, but the evidence was everywhere. The press ran with it. The SEC opened an investigation. The IPO got postponed indefinitely. The board formally voted him out within a week. Vanessa got fired from her consulting position, and that VP role she'd been promised vanished like smoke. The friends who'd known scrambled to apologize to me, but I didn't return their calls. You don't get to choose sides after staying silent while I was being humiliated. I took my settlement. 50% of everything acquired during our marriage. I walked away with more money than I'd ever need, and I started my own firm focused on representing women in high-stakes divorces, women who'd been betrayed by powerful men who thought they were untouchable. I use my experience, my legal expertise, and my resources to make sure these women get everything they're entitled to. Every case I win feels like winning that night over again. People ask me if I regret going public, if I think I went too far. And my answer is always the same. They thought they could humiliate me in silence, so I educated them in public. Theo made me look like a fool for 18 months. He paraded his mistress through my life and let his friends laugh at me behind my back. He used our marriage as a cover while he built a future with someone else. So no, I don't regret showing the world exactly who he was. I took my power back, and I'd do it again. I'm stronger now than I've ever been. I know my worth. I know that loyalty doesn't mean accepting disrespect. I know that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to suffer in silence. Your dignity is not negotiable. Your self-respect is not up for debate. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them and act accordingly. If this story resonated with you, smash that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel because I'll be sharing more stories about women who refuse to be broken by betrayal. Drop a comment telling me, Team Gabrielle, or do you think she went too far? And remember, know your worth, protect your peace, and never let anyone make you small. I'll see you in the next one.